Welcome to the Precision Engineering Division Library Closure presentation by Mallory Wilson, Elizabeth Urbanchik, Karen Torre, and Yvonne Fraser. Now, the Precision Engineering Division is actually a division of High Technology Corporation, which was established back in the 19th century. In the 1970s, it had over 100,000 employees worldwide. It is involved in the power industry. From the mid-1950s to the mid-1970s, it enjoyed record earnings. Sales just continued to grow. However, in the early 1970s, despite its healthy profits, it decided to reorganize the company, and it sold off some of its unprofitable subsidiaries. With this decision, it seems rather evident that the High Technology Corporation's goal was improving their profit margin. Now, the Precision Equipment Division was established in the mid-1950s. Its primary purpose was to design, produce precision equipment for power plants. Now, the first few years were a bit unsteady financially, but in the early 60s, they developed new products, which contributed to a more solid bottom line. The division began to rapidly expand. They invested heavily in engineering new products for the power industry. Between 1969 and 1976, they grew by 1/3 to just over 2,400 employees. Then, they were well into the energy crisis of the 70s and inflation. The power plant industry was affected by the energy crisis of the 70s. Power plants, on average, take between 8 to 12 years to build, all depending on the source of energy. Thus, with inflation, the cost to build a plant increased tremendously. For some, loans soared nearly 15%. Sorry about that. Demand for their products was directly impacted by both inflation and the energy crisis. One can probably assume that this narrowed their customer base significantly, since it costs so much more to build power plants. The company began to experience the effects of these events. Precision Equipment decided to make some cuts based on their own projected earnings from the corporation to cut costs. Now, before we get to the breakdown of their cuts, just a brief history of the division's library, the librarian, and its services. The library was established in February of 1969, primarily to support the engineering department. The librarian began reporting to the head of engineering in January of 1970. By 1972, the library housed more than 100 periodicals, over 2,000 volumes focused primarily on engineering. It housed internal documents, technical reports, government contracts, etc. Then in 1972, it also was moved to a brand new location of 1,200 square feet, which included dedicated space for its users. However, to the 2,400 employees of Precision Equipment Division, only about 180 professionals in the engineering department and 30 others from other departments used this library. But by this point, the department had grown. The librarian now had the help of 3 part-time clerical staff. In 1973, one of the part-time staff left, and the company chose not to fill the vacancy. By 1974, the company had grown so much that they needed more space, so they took it from the library. They reduced the 1,200 square foot library space to just 600, which the librarian seemed fine with. And then in July of 1976, the library's function was suspended. It seems rather evident now that the library is actually being pushed out slowly from 1,200 square feet to 600 square feet to no space at all.
Created using Powtoon.